Now I'm going to try to edit around the intense thunderstorm that's going on right now outside my house. But let's talk about Dragon Ball Fighterz and kind of the community after E3, during E3, everything that's been going around with this game specifically. It's pretty incredible to see the community reaction, and also a little bit alarming to see some of the thoughts of some individuals. Now, I want to state that I don't really care if you don't like this game, if this isn't your type of game. That's fine. Not everyone's into Xenoverse, not everyone's into Raging Blast, not everyone's into Bursum Budokai, all the Dragon Ball Z games. Everyone has their preference. Not every game can appeal to every single audience out there. But just some of the things people say, it just shows such a lack of education or any real thought process or understanding of fighting games in general, and I guess game development and publishing and marketing and all those sorts of things. Everyone thinks that games need to be catered towards them. But let me first off by saying that things we've learned, we're going to get a closed beta by the end of the summer, and obviously they're shooting for an early 2018 release date. What that means in terms of which months, January to March. And the game right now is actually 20% finished, so, if you're amazed with the game now, it's only 20% done, so, they've gotten the core combat down, and, maybe they'll add some features, but what I would imagine is right now they're going to be working on adding the rest of the characters and the story mode, because probably what they have right there at E3 is honestly probably one of their most up-to-date builds, which is damn impressive for how it looks. I didn't get to go up to E3 to play, unfortunately. I live in New York, and I'm so far from LA that, everything, it would just be so expensive to get up there. But as a consumer that is looking onto this game from a, I guess, outside's perspective, I'm not playing the game, I'm looking at it visually, looking at the trailers, and understanding the similarities that it has with games that I've played, like Marvel vs. Capcom, and I recently picked up Guilty Gear because I felt like it would be important to pick that game up to understand what this game is going to be about and really practice. And if you've played Guilty Gear and maybe think it's too hard, which it is a difficult game to learn, and I've really yet to really sink my teeth into the game and get really into it and just learn characters one at a time, because you really do need to learn these characters one at a time. There's so much depth in the game, and from what I understand, Fighterz is going to be very similar to that, but it does seem to be a little bit more streamlined than Guilty Gear. From a visual perspective, again, as I've played Guilty Gear, even though I'm not an expert at it, I can see that Fighterz is a little more streamlined, but still does have that depth. But I could see a lot of the same mechanics, but, I'm just going to regurgitate things you've probably heard other people say before. This really is like a variant on Guilty Gear and Marvel vs. Capcom with the character switching and the assists and all that stuff. And I love Marvel vs. Capcom 3. It's one of my favorite fighting games of all time. It's so visually pleasing to watch, and a lot of concern I've seen with a lot of people on the trailers and the gameplay trailers, obviously, the raw gameplay, is people think it looks like a big mess of characters shooting beams. And that's kind of what Marvel vs. Capcom is too, but if you've played Marvel, you would know that it really doesn't, it's not as bad as it really looks. Unless you're letting your guard down, keep your guard up and be ready for the opponents, but it's not like it's an impossible thing to fight with the other opponents. They're not going to be all fighting at the same time. You have a one-on-one fight, and then you're calling in assists every now and then. There's a little cooldown timer for those assist characters. So it's not as big of a mess as people might think, if you haven't played Marvel vs. Capcom. And if you don't like Marvel vs. Capcom, just know it's not the same combat from that. It is more closely related to Guilty Gear, but it's like a combination of those two series with its own flair, at least from what I've heard, seen, and can analyze, obviously. But it isn't going to be a dumbed down experience. It's going to have depth, and the producer of the game has said that. The one thing I hear a lot of people that have been saying, and I know they haven't played many fighting games, because a lot of people say it looks like Street Fighter, and if you've played Street Fighter and look at this game, you'd know it doesn't look like Street Fighter. And number two, it doesn't look like Street Fighter. But, there's been concerns about the animations, the punches look like they go too fast, there's not like a flow to them. I mean, that's just fighting games in general, like, the hardcore fighters that just have that, almost instantaneous feedback when you press a button. And I mean, Dragon Ball Z characters don't really need to move their fists very slow because they're super fast anyways. But I think a lot of people just that are coming at this have just, you know, a casual Dragon Ball Z video game player, or maybe they've played, I don't know, Mortal Kombat or something. And I think Mortal Kombat is a very in-depth fighter, but it's not as fast as like something like this or Marvel or other fighters. It's people don't. I don't think people have a good familiarity with those types of fighting games and this type of style. And you know, people are expecting a huge character roster. I'm not necessarily. I'm thinking 25, 30, and if we're lucky, somewhere in the high 30s character range. And you know, for me, that's fine. Not every Dragon Ball Z game needs to have a giant character roster. That does not need to be the deciding factor on if a game's worth really your purchase. It's always down to the gameplay. You know, back when Burstlet came out, we had like 24 characters, but damn, that game was fun. And you know, we only got up to the Cell Saga in it, but it was still a damn good game. But I mean, on the visuals, they're incredible. The one thing that they've really improved on since Guilty Gear is that Guilty Gear, you know, from what I can see visually, it looks like the character models move at like 24 frames per second, you know, to kind of emulate anime, because that's kind of what the whole game is supposed to be like. And the actual gameplay itself is 60 frames. If you've seen Guilty Gear or played it, you know what I'm talking about. I've never liked that look. I don't think it mixes well with the high frame rate of the camera movements of 60 frames. Here in Fighter Z, obviously huge improvement. It looks like the character models are going up to 60 frames, but in those cinematic cutscenes where they do specials and stuff, they have a slower, you know, 24-ish frames per second, so like a cinematic frame rate going on there. I still don't like the look of that. I wish it was all super smooth. That's what I don't like. It's not a deal breaker, but you know, maybe that would be something that I would change, unless it's like a technical limitation, I guess. But I don't think it's that. I think it's stylistic. There's also been a lot of people saying, like, you know, don't get overhyped for a Dragon Ball Z game again. Remember what's happened in the past. I said it right when this game got leaked out, and I'll say it again. This is completely different from every other Dragon Ball Z game we've gotten this far. This is a hardcore fighter. This is appealing to the fighting game community. People think this isn't going to sell because it's not going to have a big roster, or it might not have a big roster. We don't know the roster yet. This game, in my opinion, based on the fighting game community, because they are extremely hyped for this, we don't even need to help with the sales with this one. We are obviously going to buy it, but I feel like this game's going to make a ton of money just on the fighting game players alone. That's just my thoughts. I'm not saying it's going to make as much as Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, or Marvel vs. Capcom with just the fighting game audience. Well, maybe Infinite now, because Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite's looking a little bit lackluster for a lot of people. But what I'm trying to say is a lot of the fighting game community is going to be picking this up. They're super excited. The people that are in the community that have played it are praising it to hell. So this isn't just another Dragon Ball game. This isn't just another casual fighter. This is the real deal. Whether you like that or not, I can't help you with that. Like I said, not everyone's going to like every game. This, to me, is an amazing game that we're going to be getting, and I'm super excited. I've wanted a game like this for a little while now. Just an actual hardcore fighter. I love fighting games. I'm not an expert, but I like learning characters. And, you know, with Xenoverse, it does have a decent amount of depth, and with Bursma as well, but not to the degree of these real hardcore fighters. And I feel like people want the quantity over the quality. A lot of Dragon Ball fans, you know, they don't care. Again, they only care about the roster and, you know, an abundance of attacks, and they want our RPG. We will get a Xenoverse 3, mark my words. We will get Xenoverse 3, and you gotta be patient about that. But as for now, they're trying something different, and why is that really a problem? Again, you don't like it, that's fine, but like, I'm glad they're trying different things and being very creative with the way they're producing Dragon Ball games. You know, do I want a huge character roster? Of course, I'd want every single character. That's not realistic, though. Unless you want everyone to play the same or very similar. This is the type of game where it looks like you're going to have to learn every character, kind of like Guilty Gear, but it's going to be a little bit easier, I feel like, to maybe move between characters in terms of doing the combos and stuff. And yes, there's going to be an English dub for this game as well, and I know people have been asking about that. I don't know if everyone understands that yet, but there will be an English dub. Just want to mention that. The one thing that just kind of grinds my gears, and it happens with every single game, is people just say, like, this looks like shit or this sucks, and they don't give any reasons, or people say like this looks like a buggy mess when there's no bugs in it. I actually heard a few people say that this looks glitchy. I didn't see a single glitch, and I've seen the gameplay over and over and over. So, I mean, it's a 20% finished game, but I still didn't see any glitches. So I think that's everything I want to talk about. I wanted to address, and you know, in terms of the community. Love talking about this game. It excites me incredibly. I hope they hit that early 2018 window and we don't get like a delay or anything. If they have to delay it, please do. Don't be like any other publisher or developer that just pushes the games out. Be like Rockstar Games. Delay every game you need to. Make it perfect. Make it your baby. That's what I want. So give me your thoughts on this, guys, down below. If you don't like the game, just let me know what you don't like about it. If you're excited, let me know. You know, let's talk about this in the discussion down below. Don't just say it sucks. I mean, please at least tell me why. And I don't care if you don't like it. I'm curious of why. And you know, if you want like a different type of game, you want a 3D game again, that's fine. I mean, a lot of people like those 3D Dragon Ball games, and so do I. But I like something with a lot of meat to it and a lot of depth. And I want something I can play and learn for a long time. So let me know your guys' opinion down below. From what you've seen, what you're excited for, what you're not so excited for, and let's do something a little fun. And I might do a separate video on this, so maybe you're gonna have to comment this twice or something on a different video. But assume the character roster is like 25 to, let's say, 35 characters. Give me your dream list of characters in there down below. And yeah, that could be interesting. So let me know your dream roster of that kind of a list, because I think that's where we're going to get in terms of a character roster, 25 to 35. That's just a guess. I think that's fair. So let me know down below, guys. Thanks for watching as always. And of course, I'll catch you guys later.